Welcome to the Exceptional Sales Leader Podcast with Darren Mitchell. If you're a sales leader looking to take your leadership to a whole new level, then this is the podcast for you. We'll be exploring tips, techniques, and strategies to help you take your leadership to the exceptional level and allow you to enjoy more money, more meaning, and better sales results. Welcome back to the Exceptional Sales Leader Podcast, and welcome to a man coming in all the way from Chicago, Illinois, Mr. Joe Incrocci. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Darren. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you. It's looking forward to this conversation, and you've been in business for many years, and now you are the president and CEO of Incrocci Business Consulting, and you've also written your third book. It's the third book, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Number 3.
Yes.
17 powerful rules that will save, sustain, and scale your business.
Yes.
Very much looking forward to this conversation, because just before we press record, we were talking about what makes good sales and what makes not so good sales. And one of the things you did mention is that a really, really good salesperson is not necessarily going to be sustainably successful if they have a shocking product. So we'll talk a little bit about that as well. So Joe, before we jump into today's topics, love to know, for the audience's benefit, a little bit about your background and what you've done in your career, and what's led you to now be a business consultant, working with executives, C-suite executives, and helping them drive high performance.
Oh, thank you for asking. And that's my favorite subject, by the way. It's me. And just being honest. I've considered myself an entrepreneur and a serial entrepreneur. And I started companies in industrial and commercial lighting, which is a big market in the United States. So I built companies, or a corporation, on acquisitions, and would buy competitors or other startup lighting companies, and eventually built the corporation to over $100 million in revenue. Did that twice. I sold both of those companies. Built the first one, sold it to what became Philips Lighting. The second one eventually ended up being sold to another major lighting company. I'll think of the name in a second or two. But it was a Fortune 500, Hubble Lighting. They're a $4 billion company. When I sold them the last company that I started, they insisted that I stay for 4 years to run my company. At the time, I was already 67 at the time. So I stayed another 4 years beyond that. And then I decided to retire. I had sold the company. Now sold 2 companies. Sold this company. What was I going to do? I'm done, I thought. So my wife was a school teacher, and when we sold the company, she retired.
Yeah.
So I now retire. I'm home for the first day, and both of us being retired. She hands me a to-do list. I handed it back to her and told her that I wasn't going to do it, but I was going to start another company, a consulting company. So I got rid of the to-do list, and I became a consultant. And this has been great, because I have 12 at any one time. I have 12 clients. They're typically family-owned, private, entrepreneurial, and I deal at the CEO level there, and they're all different. So I get to work with people that have built companies. They're built small fortunes, exciting people, successful people. The companies are fun. They're all different, and yet I find the principles that work for one company work for all. Everybody's got the same problems. Maybe they call it by different names, but they all have the same problems. So I'm proud to say that I'm a little bit older than you, Darren, and so I'm 82, and
82.
82, and I'm usually up at 3 or 4 every morning,
Wow.
and can't wait to get to my office and get going for the day. So it's I'm loving life.
That is amazing. So you started your business, your consulting business
Yes,
at what age? 69.
67 or 68. Yes.
Wow. And I love the story. Your wife gave you a to-do list on the first day of retirement. You said you can have that
She
back.
should have done that, but she did inspire me. She inspired me to do another startup and get out the hell out of the house.
Oh, I love it. And the fact that you're still doing that at 82,
Still doing it. I
well,
work 24/7, Saturdays, Sundays, it doesn't matter. And every day I'm up at 3 or 4.
wow. So I'd love to ask you then, because we'll get into like some of the lessons around selling and products and stuff like that. But look, if you look back on your career, starting and then selling two organizations, and then obviously now running a consulting business for the last 13 years, if you look back, uh, what was one of the biggest lessons you learnt that you think enabled you to be successful as a business owner? Because there are a lot of businesses out there, irrespective of whether it's in North America or Australia or anywhere else, that they don't necessarily become successful. So, I'm not asking you what the secret was, but for you, what were some of the biggest lessons that you learnt across your career that enabled you to be successful?
I'm happy you asked because it's in my first book, which is lessons I've learned in bromides and additives. And I have a couple of favorites. One is I learned that I don't have to get a hit every time I come to bat. Guys go to the Hall of Fame bat 300.
Hmm.
So I get one hit out of every 10 times at bat. And so um, what I want is at bats. So I want chances. Give me chances, chances, chances. I'm willing to strike out. If I
Hmm.
don't fail, I can't succeed. So if I strike out, I know I'm going to get a hit. So I look at a strikeout as an opportunity.
Yeah.
So when I swing and miss, I know I get back to the plate. Next time, I'm probably going to get a hit. And if I get one hit out of every three at bats, I'm going to the Hall of Fame. So
Yeah.
that's been my motto. I look at failure as the first step in success.
Yeah.
And I don't get dejected by it. I get energized by it.
I love that because if you look at some of the big Hall of Famers, as you say, they hold multiple different records, not only most home runs, but also the most strikeouts. But
Yeah,
it's their,
exactly.
I guess it's their attitude to putting themselves in a position where they can win, but they can also necessarily not so much fail, but strike out and miss. But I think Michael Jordan said it really well that he misses 100% of the shots that he never takes. So
Yeah,
take
well,
the shot.
exactly. Yeah. Right,
Take the
right,
shot.
right, right. Yeah, it's one of my favorite sayings, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And with that, Joe, obviously over your career with that sort of an approach, it's served you well, but no doubt there's also been some challenges you've had to deal with across your career where you've
yeah,
probably put yourself in a position where, okay, in order to take this chance, take this opportunity, there's a possibility that it will come off, but there's also a possibility that it won't.
right.
So can you talk through some of the biggest challenges you've had to deal with and what you learnt from those?
Managing cash flow is the biggest issue. The price for striking out every now and then is it consumes a lot of cash. So you have to be in a position where you're not operating so thin that you can't strike out because you're going to strike out.
Yeah.
So you have to be in a position where you have some uh, substance that you can afford to get back on your feet again. And it doesn't have to be your pocketbook. You have to have
Yeah.
relationships with banks and or private equity people or other investors. So you need to be aware of and make use of the capsule stack, as I call it.
Mm, love it. Love it. And I like the fact that you mentioned their relationships because as we talk about sales, sales is not just about having a great product, it's about building great relationships that give you repeat customers and therefore the whole customer experience you create. But running a business, you've also got to have great relationships with all the key partners that you need in order to have a vibrant, hopefully sustainably successful organization as well.
Yeah, some of my best partners were bankers. We
Yeah.
think of businesses and we think of customers,
Yes.
but there's stakeholders and shareholders. So
Mm.
shareholders are investors and stakeholders are banks and vendors and others. And they're all a big part of the success equation.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So with that, you've got partners in terms of banks, obviously lawyers and so forth that play a big part in that, and no doubt customers as well. Let's turn our attention to the concept of selling and sales, and obviously to build two organizations that and to sell them off is a great achievement. But talk to me about your, I guess, your overarching philosophy on sales and what served you well in terms of building those organizations and what still serves you well today in terms of your approach to selling.
Every day I'm selling myself, right? So I'm familiar with selling. I've never been a salesman in a sales job, but every day that I've been on earth, I've been selling. When you acquire businesses, you're selling yourself. When
Yep.
you go to the bank and you get funding, you're selling yourself. I think um, the secret, not the secret, the requirement to be successful in sales is to have a good product. And the job of the guy who's knocking on the door, he's building awareness for that product. So I've got a great product, but no one knows it. So now my job as a salesman is to knock on doors for the first time. I'm knocking on doors, telling people about my great product. So I have to believe in that product because confidence and belief show through. And a potential customer gets the vibe and can tell when you're struggling with your product. And when you don't believe in it, it shows. So a sales guy has got to have experience with his product. He's got to trust that it's going to work. He's got to trust that if he sells it and sells it hard and makes promises, that the product's going to deliver.
Mm.
So he believes it. The customer sees that he believes it and believes him. Now he sells the product. The subsequent sales are the result of the performance of the product. It has
Yep.
to get there on time, has to be high quality, and then the after sale has to be high quality as well. The
Mm.
installation, troubleshooting if that's required, after service if that's required. So it's the whole, I call it the all-in product experience, not just a product, but delivery, how long did you wait for it? Did it get there on time? Did it get there high quality? Was it damaged? When you plug it in, did it work? Did you have trouble?
Yep.
Did you get good service? That whole experience, if it's a good experience, you buy another one.
Mm. Because I often say to sales teams, and we mentioned this before we press record, that the sale actually doesn't begin until after the first sale is made. So you might have a
Yeah,
good product, and this often depends on the psychology of the salesperson as well. Are they there for the commission that comes with selling a good product, or are they there to make sure the customer that gets the product has a fantastic user experience with that product? So all the things you mentioned. And that goes
yes,
into saying a lot about the credibility of the organization and whether this customer A is going to potentially buy it again, or B,
right,
recommend friends, colleagues to come and
right.
try that product yourself. So, in your experience, then, have you had a definitive strategy you've built around, I guess, your customer experience? Obviously, it starts with the core of having a good product in the beginning, but how have you
Right.
built the ecosystem around that to make sure you've got a product that is now wanted, that you've got people coming to you rather than necessarily just relying on salespeople to knock on doors?
Well, those are all the questions there. And if the business is established, the market's established, the product's established. So the job there is just to continue doing what you've been doing. If it's a new product, then I'm going to assume that the company saw a need, that they did some research and saw there was a hole in the market. They decided to fill it. And that there's many ways to do that, many ways to do market research. Um, but once the product is determined as to what the customer wants, whether it's a new product, an existing product, or a copy of a competitor's product, it has to be the total experience, high quality. It works when I got it. When it didn't work, I got people helping me right away. And I'm happy to refer it. Referrals are the number one way we grow our economy, the number one way we grow our businesses.
Mm.
So I once a year in my companies, I do customer surveys. And the one metric I always look for is what's called the Net Promoter Score. Are you familiar with that metric, the NPS?
Yes. Yes.
All the Fortune 500 and Fortune 1000 have adopted that metric.
Yeah.
I think it was first introduced by Harvard Business School 25 years ago.
Yeah.
It's a loyalty metric. It measures the customer's willingness to refer the product.
Mm.
And if it's a high score, I mean, the range is -100 to +100 for the score. And the higher that score, the more likely your customers are to refer you. So
Mm.
I suggest that when you, once a year, you should test your referral. How robust is your referral right now? And do a survey and test for the NPS or the Net Promoter Score.
Mm. And have you, just on NPS, have you, maybe a difficult question, have you seen NPS drop in your organizations, which has meant you've had to come in and do some remediation work? And if so, was it more about the way that our salespeople were representing the product, or was it more about the product itself?
Well, I'm going to admit that I've had some pretty crummy products, and I'm going to admit that I had some pretty crummy production. So when that happened, and it did happen, we had to jump in and fix it. And that's where the book uh, comes in. One of the things that we address in the book is how to avoid a bad job on the factory floor. And again, the factory floor is more than just a product. It's getting it there on time and getting it there every time on time. Uh, so the book focuses on high quality production, quick, fast production, dependable production, and high quality production.
Mm. And is that the latest book, or is that the one of the other books you've written?
That's the latest book. The first
17.
book was life lessons. You know, what's the attitude?
Yeah.
What lessons did I learn? And the second book was about mergers and acquisitions. I've done some 70 transactions in my career.
Yeah.
I Most of my companies I built by buying other companies. So I've done a lot of buy side and a lot of sell side. And then
Yeah.
this book is about how to run a factory floor and make money doing it
Yeah.
and deliver high quality products. So
Yeah.
that salesman gets the second, third, and fourth sale.
Yeah, nice, nice. Because you then and you've got to build a good team around that as well. So having the good fundamentals in place is the first pillar, but then making sure you've got good sales representation, but also good leadership that has the governance around that as well. Because if you've got a fantastic product and not so great sales team, you're not going to maximize the potential of that product, are you?
No, and those salespeople have to have personal experience with the product. They have to believe in it. I can't imagine how a salesman can sell something that he personally hasn't lived with and experienced. Then he can honestly and credibly tell people about it and sell it.
Hmm. So let's then talk about, because I'd love to talk about some of the principles in your book as well, but from a leadership point of view, when you're looking at the products you've had over your career, and you mentioned before some not so great products and some really great products, but as we said before, that you're prepared to step up to the plate and take the hit, right? So some you
And
win, and some you don't necessarily win.
I only
If you
need
look,
one of every three.
so I say that again.
I only need one of every three
One
to
of every
test.
three, absolutely, and that's a good batting average.
So give me more at bats, and that's how I win.
Yeah, absolutely. So with that, then, if you look at the quality of the people, the type of people that you've brought in to represent your product. And we can talk about things like executive presence and ownership and emotional intelligence. But love to know from you, is there specific characteristics that you have looked for in an ideal representation for your product? That is, whether it be the sales representative or the sales leader looking after the sales team, that will best represent what your product stands for.
I look for smart people, people that are willing to learn and understand what the product is, what it does, why the customer needs it, why he wants it. People who are good at building relationships, even though I believe that the product is what ultimately people buy. People don't buy a relationship, although they like dealing with somebody they like, but they're buying the product, not the relationship.
Yeah.
But having said that, building a good relationship is certainly a good thing to have. All things being equal, you'll get the transaction.
Because people will ultimately buy from people, but they've also got to make sure the product that they buy from people is fitting a need, solving a problem, fulfilling a desire, whatever the case
And
might be.
doing what they said it would do.
That's it. That's it. Because you can have a fantastic person that makes this product sound world class, and when they experience the product, I guess the creation of the dream is not matched with the reality of the experience.
Yeah, and no matter what that sales guy did, how many dinners he bought, how many baseball games he took him to, when that happens, it doesn't matter. When the product doesn't deliver or do what it said, then the whole thing falls apart.
Absolutely. So let's talk then about. I mean, obviously in your career you've had leaders within your teams. You'd have to have that building such a big business. Uh, when you have, I guess, not so much dysfunction, but when you're trying to drive high performance in your team from a leadership point of view, what specifically have you looked for that has enabled the product, presupposing it's a great product, to actually go from the production factory floor to the hands of the customer? What have good leaders done for your business?
I'm not sure I understand the question. I mean, I understand the words and I understand what you're asking, but I'm not quite sure I understand the objective. Are you asking me sales leaders or the CEO or
Well, just in terms of leadership, because this is all about exceptional sales leadership, and take out the sales and it's exceptional leadership. So what makes an exceptional leader? So with a very successful company, we've already talked about you've got to have a great product. But if you
Mhm.
look at the leaders that you've had within your organizations, what was it about the leaders that enabled the company to continue to grow?
choosing great salespeople? And how do you find a great sales or what makes a great salesperson? Uh, a great salesperson has to know this product. So I think the first requirement is a person who's willing to get into the details and be able to describe the product and fall in love with it. If you, it's hard to sell something you don't believe in. So
Hmm.
you've got to fall in love with your product. Um, I think a good leader is got to be good at picking out people like that, people that want to learn, want to understand the product, they can fall in love with it, and want to communicate it to their potential buyers. And then when things go wrong, things do go wrong. And I think what makes that work is when you make it right. So if you have a problem, as we all do, if you fix the problem and fix it quickly and fix it good, then you get a second opportunity. So I think picking problem solvers, people that don't get dejected, people that don't walk back and say, "Oh God, everybody let me down. The thing got there, it fell apart," but rather, "Hey, it wasn't quite right, but we fixed it. We fixed everything. Now we have a second chance to make it work." So the sales guy's job the factory's job is to give the sales guy the best thing they can so he doesn't have to make any adjustment. He
mm,
doesn't have to make any excuse. But things go wrong.
mm.
When they do go wrong, the sales guy has got to be able to get to earn for the company a second time to come to the plate.
Yeah, which is taking ownership and accountability for the product, the
Yeah.
performance of the product, and if it's not meeting the customer's expectations, then we look at what we can do to bridge that gap between what we promised and what the customers experienced. Yeah.
Yes.
And so with that, if how much emphasis have you placed in your career on the power of emotional intelligence in the leaders that you have, the people who can adjust, who can pivot, who can make those decisions, who do have the flexibility to be able to make some decisions to create a better experience for customers. So from an emotional intelligence point of view, how important is that to driving, in your eyes, high performance?
I think it's the number one requirement. Um, Smart people are going to figure it out
Yeah,
and find a way to make everything work. And people who scramble to make things right when they go wrong are going to be the winners. Things always go wrong, right, Darren?
I do.
Things, one thing you can depend on is something's going to go wrong. And you have to be able to fix it when it goes wrong. So
Mm,
I put a high value on smart guys with the ability to be flexible and adjust and adapt.
yeah. And so there's a line in the bio here that I've got that talks about um, why fixing the team often starts with fixing the leader.
Yeah, yeah, sure. He sets the drum beat, right?
Well, and it's interesting how many companies out there will have leaders who then blame the team for not delivering the outcome, or they blame production for not giving a good product, or they blame distribution for not getting the product in the hands of the customers at the right time. From your experience, how has that helped you grow in terms of looking at the leader? Because what I get from that is a leader who takes responsibility can now build more trust within the team because they're taking ownership of it
Yeah,
rather than apportioning blame to others.
yeah. You're well said. And the leader who blames the other departments does that one time and he's gone. It, for me,
Yeah.
yeah, that leader's got to take responsibility for the company. Not necessarily. I'm not saying that it was his fault, of course, but he can't be blaming other people. He's part of the company. We're one organization. He's part of the company. He can't say well they.
Mm,
He's part of they. So he's got to say we, and I'm going to fix it.
mm.
So a leader that is quick to get rid of the responsibility, I'm going to help him get rid of the responsibility. Ask him to leave.
I'm thinking you might have done that a few times over your career then.
Oh, I have. It's a difficult thing to do, but it cleanses the operation. Everybody knows that that kind of person shouldn't be around. So the longer you let somebody like that stay, the more the rest of the team thinks you're crazy. Why is he here? Why is that person here?
And the issue with that is if we don't deal with leaders like that, and it creates an impression that that behavior is tolerated, that is accepted,
Yes,
and that becomes the new standard that we set.
yes, it's an infection, it's a disease. And people
That's
see
right.
it.
So cut it
How
out.
long, how long are you going to allow yourself to have that cancer around?
Yeah, and it's interesting. I was listening to a podcast recently. They were talking about how toxic cultures are made up of toxic people, and people tend to leave organizations because of, in many cases, toxic culture or toxicity.
Yeah.
But nobody's ever been able to identify or put their hand up to say, yes, I was the toxic person.
Yes,
I'm the,
you're right. Wasn't me. It was that guy.
it wasn't me. It was somebody
Yeah,
else.
yeah,
Somebody else.
yeah.
I love that. So let's talk about the latest book. So you've talked the first few books was all about your experiences through building companies, your personal reflections. The second one was all about your mergers and acquisitions experiences, and this one is 17 powerful rules that will save, sustain, and scale your business. So
Right.
would you say this is more of a practical sort of book, like a roadmap for organizations and leaders to follow? Or is there something else that was the catalyst for building and writing the book?
Well, my first book I wrote thinking, what's the need what am I trying to communicate? And it
Hmm.
was attitude and fortitude and the desire and the will to win. So I chose to write it in a form that was adages and bromides. So it's a book. It's about 100 pages. There's probably each page has probably four bromides. So when you look at the book, it's real simple to read. It's
Yep.
a toilet read. When you're going to the bathroom in 20 minutes, you'll have read the book, and it's a section on everything you can imagine. And it talks about lessons for leaders and lessons for other traits and things. So if you pick up the book and look at it, for example, one is, am I a leader? How do I know I'm a leader? It's
Yep.
simple. Look behind you. Are there people following? If they are, you're a leader. If they're not, you're not. And then the anything worth doing is worth doing imperfectly. So if I'm doing something and I'm waiting for it to be perfect, I'm going to be waiting a long time.
Yep.
So it's a book full of those kind of bromides and lessons. Very
Nice.
short, easy read. The second book I wrote was there was a lot of activity in the buy sell market, and a lot of people doing it were doing it for the first time.
Hmm.
I've done 70 transactions in my career, so I'm very good. I still do a lot of M&A. I do a deal or two a year,
Yep.
big deals, so a couple $100 million worth of deals. So I'm very learned about with M&A. So I decided that I'd write a book for people who aren't. So I
Hmm.
wrote a book for virgin sellers or buyers. If this is the first time you're buying or the first time you're selling, this is
Yep.
what to expect. So it's a
Yep.
it's a book all about buying and selling, but it's written in a very detailed, very minutiae kind of way, where if you're doing it for the first time, you'd be able to learn what's going on and why it's going on and who's doing it. So that was the second book. The third book, I saw a need on the factory floor or the distribution floor or really any business. It focuses on the factory, but the rules will belong to any business. I
Yep.
said the traditional way of thinking isn't working, isn't working. And what is working is a non-traditional way of thinking. And it's so simple that the most difficult thing to get beyond is that it's not traditional. So
Yep.
when you read the book, you'll say, "Well, that'll never work. No one does it that way." That's right, no one does it that way. But guess what? It works, and it's simple. And the most difficult thing is to understand that it will work and try it. So
Mm.
um, where we've implemented the rules in the book, they've been tremendously successful.
Love that. So it challenges people's thinking. It challenges, I guess, the paradigms that organizations may have been following for many years and saying, hey, how about we change the way we think? How about we do things slightly differently and potentially get a different result? With the 17 rules, and it's almost like asking, have you got a favorite lolly or a favorite hobby or a favorite child or a favorite grandchild? Do you have of the 17 rules, Joe? Is there one that's your ultimate favorite that
Yeah, it's
is your number
the
one?
number one rule. When I go into a business, it's the number one thing I look for, and that is the total output of the business. So the number one metric, we've got so many metrics, so many KPIs we look at. In my thinking, only one matters. That's what is the number of units. that this
Hmm.
business can produce in a day or an hour or a week or a month. That's
Yep.
the heartbeat of the business. And if the business focuses on it, making that number better and better and better, if the business can put out more and more and more and more units, just think the only way it can do that is by eliminating all the waste in the system. So
Yep.
if, as an example, think of a product going from the receiving dock to the shipping dock, and it goes in a squiggly line. That's a waste, right? It has to
Yep.
go like this. If it goes in a straight line, that's going to go much faster and there's no waste. That's the whole principle behind throughput. If I
Mm.
can get throughput from 1 unit an hour to 100 units an hour, I've just eliminated 99% of the waste in the system. But not only am I making more units, I'm making them cheaper because
Mm.
I've taken all the cost out.
Yep.
So the number one metric that I focus on when I first walk into a new business is what's the output of that business in terms of per day or per hour or per week or whatever. What's the total output? That's my number one metric.
And then that becomes almost like the baseline because obviously there's a presupposition there that we can always improve that. But I'm sure you
Yes.
see a lot of organizations, particularly if they're looking at the traditional way of doing things, we can make an exponential improvement. So turning 1 into 100 per hour, as long as
Yes.
the quality of the product is maintained, that can drive significant savings and profitability.
The only way you can increase the output is to improve the quality of the product.
Yeah.
If I have to rework the product, I'm wasting time.
Yeah.
So the only way, that's one of the main, I cannot improve the throughput if I don't improve the quality.
Mm.
So by improving the quality, I have less rework. I have less stoppage time for reworking. So the higher the quality I make it, the faster I'm going to make it.
Nice. And in your in this book, is there anything in there that talks about feedback, constant improvement? So how big are you on getting feedback from customers, getting feedback from the sellers to improve I guess, the quality of the product?
I do customer surveys every year. Once a year, in every business I have, I do a customer survey every year.
Yeah, you talked about the NPS. So does
That's
that is
part of the customer satisfaction index.
Yeah. Is that something that because it is one thing you can look at the number of units and how do I improve the throughput, get rid of all the waste. Um, how big have you been on tapping into that customer feedback as a mechanism, or at least a contribution to improving the quality of the product, which then has a flow-on effect to the experience that's then created for the customer?
Well, every year we talk to the customer to get his expectations. What do you want? What do you expect? How do you expect it? What's the price you expect to pay?
Yeah.
And so on. So what's the what is the KPI or what's the requirement of throughput? How fast does it have to be? Only one person can answer that question. That's the customer.
Yeah.
How fast do I want it? I want it. You want it? Is a week okay, or do you want it in an hour? What's your expectation? Whatever
Mm,
that expectation is, I have to meet it. If I don't meet it, I'm going to lose market share. If I
yeah.
do meet it, I'm going to get market share.
Mm,
So, so my book starts out on the front page. It says increase your market share. That's how. I'm going to find out what's the requirement for the customer. When does he want it? When does he need it? Let's take a job site where there's a bunch of electrical contractors on the job. If they don't have the product, they're sitting there idle.
mm,
So to a contractor, one of the most important things is for the product to be there when his men are there.
mm.
Right? When are they there? When the job first starts? Every Friday, every Thursday, once a week. What's the requirement?
Yeah.
So my job as a manufacturer or as a producer of products is to get the product there exactly when the customer wants it. Not too
Mm,
soon, because he doesn't want the inventory. He doesn't have, that means he has to have space. If I
yeah.
get there before he wants it, he's got to put it someplace.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to drive him to have to get more space. It'll be costly. So I've got to
Mm.
get it there when he wants it, not early, not and certainly not late.
Yeah.
So that's the guy who does that, probably the number one thing that you can do, number one metric. The guy who does a good job with that is going to get the lion's share of the marketplace.
Yeah. Because and also that means there's a good strong relationship there because you're really tapping into the requirements, understanding that particular customer's business, and
Right.
you're part of their, I guess, their customer life cycle in terms of when that product is required. So you can plan and do all the logistics and distribution to make sure there's no idle time. So, and it's interesting as you say that because a few of my clients have distribution centers and they do have a challenge with oversupply of stock and they've got to find space to hold it. And in some
Yeah.
cases, they've got to find an overflow site to hold it. And that's
Yeah.
costly.
Very costly. So it takes your capacity. If you look at capacity, not just in terms of what you can make, but how much cash do you have to be able to afford it? How much
Yeah.
space to be able to put it, and people and so on.
Mm.
So one of the second metric I watch mostly is do not build inventory. Inventory is a big waste, and traditional thinkers say if I don't have the inventory, I can't ship.
Yep.
Well, if you have inventory, by definition, it's sitting on the shelf.
Yeah.
So why would you build and use your capacity to put stuff on the shelf? Only use your capacity when you can ship it. So don't have inventory, but have a free capacity and a free shop. So when the customer says, I need it, make it then and there and ship it. Don't
Yep.
put it into inventory. That's to your point. I need space and I need cash to do that. So I'm
Mm.
going to keep my production assets free. I'd rather have them idle doing nothing. So when that order comes in, I can make it and ship it.
Yeah. So as you said before, that's non-traditional
That's
thinking
not traditional thinking.
because it's almost like, well, if we build it, they will come. So let's build it and let's store it. But
Yeah,
what you're saying is, no, no, let's create the demand. When the
yeah.
demand is there, then we ramp up the production to meet the demand, and
Yes,
production right through to delivery should be actually one part of one process.
absolutely. And I have arguments from quote unquote experts who say, if you don't have it in inventory, when the order comes in, how can you at that point, how can you make it and ship it? I said, let's define inventory. Inventory by definition is going to go on the shelf. So when I make inventory, I'm making something I don't need right at this point in time because I'm going to store it.
Mm.
Yet I don't have the time to make something I need right now and be able to ship it. So let me see if I understand what I just said. I have the time to make something that I'm going to put on the shelf, but I don't have the time to make something that I'm going to ship. To me, that's the definition of insanity.
That's right.
So I'm going to make it and ship it. Why would I make it and store it? That makes no sense.
That's right. So this might sound like a naive question, and I apologize if that is the case, but um, does that process uh, does that process depend on the type of product? Because I'm assuming that there'd be some products that might have a production cycle a little bit longer than, say, one day. And I know that cars, for example,
Right.
can still be made really quickly, but for that approach, because that sounds to me a little bit like the lean methodology. Let's meet the demand, deliver the demand, and it's almost like just in time sort of approach.
Yeah.
Does in your experience, does that approach work irrespective of the product, or would there be caveats to it?
No, it's not product prejudice. It's a non-prejudice strategy. What it
Okay.
does require is where the production is out of my control, that meaning where I'm depending on a vendor. The
Yeah.
vendor may not have the same production mentality I do, and he may not be as reliable as I am on delivery. In his case, I'll buy what I call buffer vendor inventory. So if
Okay.
I need his component parts and he's not reliable, I will buy and store some of his parts. So
Yep.
when I need them, they're there for me. I'll pull them right up and put them in production.
Yeah.
But for the most part, with the exception of vendor buffers, as I've just mentioned, I'll never buffer myself. So I never, whatever I need, I make when I need it. So the strategy is not product prejudice. It's any product will function nicely at this with this strategy. And
Mm.
I have testimonials that'll be on my LinkedIn site from clients where I've implemented this strategy, where they say when Joe taught us how not to make inventory, we saved millions and millions of dollars of cash, and they did.
Because they don't have to have that space and storage in
They
there.
don't need that space, they don't need the storage, they don't need the inventory, and it doesn't take the cash. So the perfect shop is a straight line. Comes in the back door and goes out the front door in one straight line in an hour. That's the perfect shop.
And then you then tie that into customer satisfaction and setting the
Right,
expectations. And I'm
right,
just thinking of the salesperson who's now out talking to customers about this particular
right,
product. And so
right.
we've got a high degree of confidence to say, you know what, you need this product by this date. We can pretty much, well,
We'll have it
do
there.
we stop short of saying guarantee, but we've got a high percentage
Now I'm
of
going to tell them. I'll guarantee you.
you will.
I'm gonna play the odds. I know statistically speaking, 9 out of 10 times I'm gonna be right there like I should. Once in a while something may go wrong, a machine may go down. Even there I try and have redundancy, but once in a while my backup and my backup may fail. So once in
Yeah.
a while I may not make it, but I'm not gonna make it. I won't miss it by much. And this statistically, the times that I won't make it are almost don't exist. So
Yeah.
I'm more than willing to play the odds and guarantee my production will be there when I say it will.
So with that, does that is your strategy when you're working with organizations? Because a lot of businesses in North America and probably the same as Australia, they might outsource the manufacturing to Bangladesh. And I know in America there's more and more manufacturing coming back onshore. Um, how do you work in that strategy? Is it partly your recommendation is to hold on to the manufacturing because you've got more control over things like your distribution channels, production times, quality, etc.
I believe if I can control it, I can be as cost effective as most anybody else. You could say it's hard to beat $10 an hour labor when I've got a guy making $40 an hour, right? But
Yeah.
if that guy at $10 an hour takes 5 hours to make it, and my guy at $40 takes 1 hour to make it, I win, right?
Mm, mm.
So I can afford to have higher unit costs if I can make more units.
Yeah. 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 Because as you're talking there, I'm thinking just in my own personal example, trying to get t-shirts or jerseys or made that, and we've got certain suppliers we have to go through. They all have their manufacturing, not in Australia. They have their manufacturing in Vietnam, and it's like 8 week turnaround times, which is not great for a customer experience.
8 weeks, I'm buying for somebody else, right?
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know what it's like for you in Australia, but here, when my wife wants to buy something, and we go out there, she's let's go out and buy a couch or let's go out and buy a washing machine or whatever. She means now.
yeah,
I want to buy it today.
yeah. Not
So
wait 6 months.
I'm not going to wait 6 months. I want that new couch in my living room tomorrow.
Yeah,
Okay. So availability is key. So the faster I can have something there, the more certain I'm going to get the order.
yeah, love it. Um, so Joe, this has been a fascinating conversation. If there was one other key rule you wanted to leave us with in relation to um, efficiency, productivity, selling, customer centricity, what would that be?
Don't think local, think global. So by that I mean I can be very efficient on a machine. So if I have a machine that requires an hour worth of setup to get it to run, I might be tempted if I'm the operator to run a bunch because the more I make now that I've set it up, I can amortize that setup and quote unquote be efficient. The
Yeah.
problem with that logic is that machine is now tied up, running stock so he can amortize the setup. Where does that stock go? It doesn't go to the customer, it goes on the shelf and it sits there. So all I've done is I've taken that setup and I've now put it on the shelf, right? I'd rather let the setup not be amortized. I'd rather pay extra for the setup, keep the machine free. So when the order comes in, I can make production and ship it. So
Mm.
I don't think local. I don't think let's amortize the setup. I think let's accept the setup and let's ship it to the customer when he gives us the order, and
Yeah.
we'll make more money by shipping it than we will by amortizing the setup.
Mm.
So
It
think
sounds
global, not local.
as you're saying that, it sounds so logical. Common sense.
It's what I said. The process is so simple that it's deceptively simple. Simple.
So this can't be true, Joe. This is, hey, we've done this for 10, 15,
Yeah,
20 years. This is how we've
you
always
must be wrong. Please leave.
phenomenal. Hey, really appreciate you coming on the podcast and sharing some of your wisdom. It's been fantastic. So, people want to learn more about you and connect with you. Where's the best place for them to do that?
LinkedIn. I'm
Yep,
on LinkedIn.
that's the best place.
Yes.
Perfect. I'll make sure I put that in the show notes. So, my friend,
Thank
thank you so much for
thank
jumping
you,
on
Dan. I
the
appreciate it.
podcast.
It's been a fun
Um,
experience.
Thank you. If there was one parting piece of wisdom that we haven't covered off, for a person listening to that that's going to help them, what would you like to leave them with?
Honest to God, it's true. It works.
Just be honest.
Buy the book and you'll see it works. Try it.
Love it. Joe, thank you so much. It's been great having a conversation with you.
Thank you, Darren. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Good luck to you.
Thank you for listening to the Exceptional Sales Leader podcast. I trust the information in this episode has been helpful in your journey towards becoming exceptional. And remember, please take the time to rate the show, subscribe to the show so other people can find it. But also, if I can help you, jump on my calendar, go to leadwithdarren.com and let's have a conversation about how I can help you along your journey to being exceptional.